wasn't supposed to feel nervous walking down the aisle, but something didn't feel right that day, and I couldn't explain why. My name is Alina. I was 25 when this happened, and I remember standing at the entrance of the venue, holding my bouquet so tightly my hands were shaking, not because I was unsure about marrying Daniel, but because of one person sitting in that crowd, my brother. Growing up, he was the one who protected me, the one who used to tell people not to mess with his little sister. But the moment I introduced him to Daniel, something changed. Something cold, something distant. He didn't yell, he didn't fight. He just watched, quietly judging everything. 2 weeks before the wedding, he pulled me aside and said, "You don't know him the way you think you do." And when I asked him what that meant, he just smiled and said, "You'll find out soon enough." I should have taken that seriously. I should have asked more questions, but I didn't. And as the music started and the doors opened, I took my first step down the aisle, not knowing that in less than a minute, my entire wedding was about to stop.
Everything was perfect for exactly 30 seconds. The music was playing, guests were smiling, and Daniel was standing at the altar looking at me like I was the only person in the world. And for a moment, I forgot every strange feeling I had before walking in. I forgot my brother's warning. I forgot everything except the fact that I was about to marry the man I loved. Then I heard a chair scrape loudly against the floor, the kind of sound that instantly pulls everyone's attention. And before I could even process it, my brother's voice cut through the entire room. "Don't marry him. She's lying to all of you." The music stopped, the guests turned, and my heart dropped so fast it felt like I couldn't breathe. I stood there, frozen, halfway down the aisle, every eye on me, every whisper starting at once. And I remember thinking this had to be some kind of joke, some kind of misunderstanding. But then I looked at my brother's face, and he wasn't joking. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, he took a step forward and said, "You really think she told you everything?"
I couldn't move. I couldn't even think properly, because in that moment, it felt like my entire life was being ripped open in front of 200 people. And the worst part was, I didn't even know what he was talking about. I looked at Daniel, expecting confusion, maybe anger, maybe even doubt. But instead, he did something I will never forget for the rest of my life. He didn't panic. He didn't ask me what was going on. He didn't even look surprised. He just smiled. Not a happy smile, not a nervous one, but the kind of calm smile that makes you realize something is about to happen. He stepped forward, looked directly at my brother, and said, "Go ahead. Tell them everything." The entire room went silent again, but this time it felt different, heavier, like everyone was holding their breath, waiting for something bigger. My brother hesitated for the first time, and I saw it, that tiny crack in his confidence. But then he laughed and said, "You really want me to?" And Daniel nodded, slowly, like he had been waiting for this exact moment all along.
My brother started talking, but what came out of his mouth wasn't what I expected, because instead of exposing me, he started accusing Daniel, saying things about money, about lies, about things that didn't even make sense. And the more he spoke, the more desperate he sounded. That's when Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone, and without raising his voice, without showing any anger, he said, "You mean this truth?" and pressed play. The sound echoed through the silent hall, and within seconds, everyone heard my brother's voice, not from that moment, but from days earlier, laughing, bragging, admitting that he was going to ruin my wedding because he couldn't stand seeing me happy, because he was in debt, because he thought Daniel was an easy target. I felt like the ground disappeared beneath me as the reality hit. This wasn't about protecting me. This wasn't about concern. It was jealousy. Pure, ugly jealousy. The guests started whispering again, but this time it wasn't about me, it was about him. And for the first time since he stood up, my brother looked small. And then Daniel said something that changed everything. "You should sit down now before you make this worse."
No one spoke for a few seconds after that, not even my brother, who slowly looked around the room and realized that every single person was now looking at him differently, not as someone exposing the truth, but as someone who had just exposed himself. He didn't argue, he didn't shout again, he just turned and walked out, and the sound of the door closing behind him felt louder than anything else that had happened that day. I stood there, still trying to process everything, and then I looked at Daniel, the man who could have panicked, who could have doubted me, who could have let everything fall apart, but didn't. He walked toward me, gently took my hand, and said, "You don't have to walk the rest of this alone." And somehow, even after everything that had just happened, that moment felt stronger than anything we had planned. The ceremony continued, not perfectly, not traditionally, but honestly, and sometimes that's more powerful than perfection. My brother hasn't spoken to me since that day, and maybe he never will, but I learned something that day that I'll never forget. Sometimes the people who try to break you only reveal who they really are. And if this story moved you, make sure to subscribe, because every week we share stories about love, betrayal, and the moments that change everything.